Hi, my name is Paul Smithdale. I'm a Principal Consultant at Insight, and today I'd like to talk about application modernisation. The first thing we've got to do is ask, what is application modernisation? Many of us are familiar with Gartner's 5 R's of migration. Application modernisation is related to rehost, refactor, and re-architect. So let's dive into those pillars. Rehosting is the least effort, highest velocity way of migrating our applications, and once it's in the cloud, our application is in a place where it's easier to adopt one of the other strategies. Refactor, we want to make some simple changes to our application to adopt cloud-native processes. Some of these changes might be to decentralize caching. We want to harden the security of our application. We might do that through the use of Azure Key Vault, or we might want to have better visibility of our operations and user engagement. We might do that by implementing application insights. And lastly, re-architecture. We're going to be making some fundamental changes to our application. It's the biggest impact application modernization process, so we've got to have a good reason to do it. Some of those reasons may include adding performance or security to our application, or adding significant business value. So now that we know what application modernization is, why do we want to embark on the journey? Some of our motivators might include a mandate to exit the data center. Now here, we want to have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time. So the strategy we might adopt is to rehost, and like mentioned before, we want to lift and shift those VMs to the cloud. The next one that we might want to approach is to accelerate innovation. If we look at our application portfolio, we might find that making a simple change can take weeks or months to get into production. Modern our application and adopting DevOps processes means that we can deliver that business value much faster. The next reason is application innovation. If we have a look at our application portfolio, we might find that it takes weeks or months to deliver business value into production. By incorporating DevOps processes such as automation, we can deliver that business value to market much faster than before. We might need to minimize risk. Our on-premise applications might be hosted on a few application servers. When we need to do maintenance to those servers, it means bringing those systems offline and creating outages for our end users. Moving it to a PaaS environment means that we minimize those outage windows, if not eliminating them altogether. The management of those services also has overheads. By moving our applications to PaaS services, we can reutilize our staff from keeping the lights on to providing higher business value outcomes. And lastly, sunset of technologies might create gaps in compliance and expose us to security risks. And not only that, it may become difficult to get developers to continue to support and develop our applications. So now that we have the what and why of application modernization, we need to address how. And these steps is Insight's approach to application modernization. First of all, we need to do an application assessment to understand our application portfolio. We may have hundreds of applications within our application portfolio, so how do we surface information about it? It may be a lengthy manual process to get that information. Luckily, there's tools-based approaches to do it for us. The first assessment is an application portfolio assessment. This looks at finding dependencies between our applications, resource requirements, and time frame to do the modernization. The other assessment we can do is a code-based assessment. This is a deep dive into the code to find out any issues and also provide remediations. We only want to do this assessment on a small number of applications which have high complexity, so we get good value out of the process. Now that we have our application assessment complete, we can plan for our migration and modernization. The first thing is to define the landing zone. The landing zone is going to incorporate our infrastructure, our security and governance, and our cost of operation. We also need to know which applications we're going to migrate. With our application assessment, we need to categorize our applications in size and also identify which ones we're going to retire, which ones we're going to rehost, refactor, and re-architect. Now, we can't go straight to modernization. There might be items that we need to remediate, and we're not sure how we're going to remediate them. A good approach is to do a proof of concept or a prototype to evaluate some of the remediation strategies. Once we have those in place, then we can take the outcomes into our modernisation process. And lastly, we get into modernisation. It's advised to organise a team to conduct the modernisation process. With a team in place, they can build velocity with each application they modernise. They should incorporate DevOps into their process so we have better support, visibility of the application, and automation so that we can change it and add business value faster in the future. And lastly, handover to support and BAU so we can continue to operate the application once it's in production. Application modernisation isn't always a straightforward process, and we might hit hurdles along the way. Some of the issues that we commonly see in application modernisation programs is tight coupling between applications. And tight coupling, when we move an application to the cloud, we find that it breaks other applications on-prem. And there's a few different ways of handling this. One way, instead of migrating one application, is we migrate all of the affected applications in one move. The other way is to provide an abstraction between the application that we're modernising and migrating and the others that remain in on-premise. We might provide that abstraction through the use of tools such as API management. The next difficulty that we might encounter is that our teams aren't familiar with cloud-native processes. This might result in failed projects or migrations. We might also have cost blowouts where the wrong resource or pricing tier is selected. It's also a common misconception that the cloud is secure by default. The cloud data center is secure, but we're responsible for the security and the authentication of our applications. Security teams may block our application modernization program due to concerns with security, but they may not have the answers for us. We need to remediate these security concerns before we can move forward. And lastly, we may have an expectation that a move to the cloud will help us work faster and be more productive, but we're using the same processes that we embraced and adopted on premises. We can't just modernize the application. We also have to modernize our processes. And a good strategy here is adopting DevOps into our application modernization program. There are many benefits of application modernization. Firstly, we get to incorporate DevOps processes into each one of our applications. DevOps gives us automation of our build and release pipelines, meaning we can deliver business value to our end users faster. DevOps also incorporates testing into our process, meaning we build trust in our applications so that we can deliver faster. Moving to PaaS platforms reduces our management and cost overheads. We're less concerned about the hosting and the infrastructure and more concerned about the application and the operationalization of the application. Monitoring can be built into our application, but it's also central to the whole cloud platform. This is fantastic because it gives us correlation between what our infrastructure is doing, what our application is doing, and also visibility into how users interact with the whole platform. Application modernization doesn't always mean modifying the application. And once we've migrated to the cloud platform, it makes it easier to extend the existing application. We can do this through the use of PaaS resources such as Logic Apps, or through the use of low to no code solutions such as Microsoft Power Platform. So to recap on what I've discussed today, our approach to application modernization follows 4 steps. First, we need to assess our application portfolio, understand the risks and issues that we need to resolve, and the size and complexity of the applications that we're modernizing. Next, we need to plan by defining the landing zone, which incorporates our infrastructure, security, and governance, but also plan the approach to each application that we want to migrate. Next, prototype solutions to some of the issues that were detected in the assessment. Select a simple, high-value application to test your modernisation approach. And lastly, build a team that you'll use throughout your application modernisation process. The team will build familiarity and velocity in the migration process, and now be able to knowledge share with your application teams so you can take the learnings into your everyday application development. Thanks for listening.